Greetings, my name is Melinda Weekes-Laidlow, and I am the CEO and founder of Beautiful Ventures. Allow me to introduce you to my great-grandmother, Margaret Melinda Manuel. I am named after her, and for the purposes of this pitch, I will call her Gigi Melinda for short. Gigi Melinda was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina in 1870. And although in this continent, there were several generations of our family members who existed before her, it was Gigi Melinda who was the first in our family line not to be subjected to the system of kidnapping, trafficking, and sale of the indigenous peoples of Africa known as the transatlantic slave trade. And as I stand here before you today, there is very little I know about my grandmother. There is little that I know about the stories of those who came before her. I do not have the privilege of standing upon the wealth that her hands created, and that was by design. I am clear, however, that the dehumanization of my family members over several centuries was not because of the contents of their character. It was because of the color of their skin. And while this particular form of dehumanization ended in 1865, the same pattern and practice of state-sanctioned, privately enabled, race-based discrimination continued for a century and a half later, up until this very day. And I could testify of numerous, countless indignities I personally have suffered because of the color of my beautiful skin. But that would not get at the underlying dimensions of the problem that I'm looking to solve. But if you multiply my story by the 42 million African Americans in this country and their family lines over several generations, over several centuries, then we get closer to the reason why I founded Beautiful Ventures. Yes, it has to do with racism. Perhaps our country's continuous, persistent founding problem that we still face today. Just take a look at the policies, your Twitter feed, handles, headlines, and the like to see evidence of that. Yet, as one sociologist put it, if talking about racism is difficult, and it is, then talking about anti-blackness is completely taboo. Anti-blackness is a distinct form of racism on top of regular racism that targets people of African descent. It has three defining characteristics. One is the debasement of Black humanity. Two is an indifference to Black suffering. And three is a denial of Black people's right to exist. And to be clear, while anti-blackness calls into question the very humanity of Black folks, it also damages and harms the humanity of all people of color and white folks too. You've heard my testimony, but it is my training and track record that makes me the right person for this work. For the last 2 decades, as an attorney and as a social change architect, I've been hired to advise and coach and train change agents, organizations, and social movements in their work to find solutions to our country's most pressing problems. And with a special emphasis and expertise that I bring around race, equity, and inclusion. With Beautiful Ventures, I get to put all of my training and track record into solving a problem that I am most passionate about, which is to build a world where the humanity of all Black people is presumed, affirmed, and unchallenged. And I believe Gigi Melinda would want me to do just that. Beautiful Ventures is a creative social enterprise that influences popular culture, disrupts anti-Blackness, and elevates perceptions of Black humanity. We launched this past Juneteenth to build the skill, power, and wealth of Black, story-driven creatives, and especially writers. Why writers? Because we believe writers have the capacity to literally rewrite a new narrative. We have 3 elements to our offerings. One is a network of storytellers and story lovers who want to see this narrative changed. We have accelerator enterprise programs to help creatives build story-driven businesses that build wealth and give jobs, and a community investment fund to bring these businesses to scale.
Great. Round of applause. Thanks, Melinda. All right. A couple of questions from our judges.
Can you hear me? Okay. So, Melinda, thank you for your presentation. I love that you're a storyteller and that you're very passionate about the story that you're telling. Can you share with us how you'll measure success of this venture?
Sure. One of the ways that we'll measure success is by the three prongs of our model. So there's the network, which is to build a community, a self-organized but global community of people. So we have a membership that people can just sign up, so just measuring how many people are signed up, how many people are following us on social media, and then also in our enterprise programs, we'll be having programs. How many people are attending? Are we building businesses that actually will be coming through our accelerator programs, going to market? And then in terms of the narrative, we'll just be keeping an eye. You saw the slide that I had on the various indicators that there is still this anti-Black narrative there. On the flip side, how many of that, what would that slide look like because of our work and others that are doing this ecosystem building work that actually are images, stories, tropes that affirm the humanity of Black people? Mm-hmm.
Cool. Any other questions?
Is this working? Okay. Hey, thanks so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And I'd love to connect with you offline.
Awesome.
So I'm just curious what you see as kind of the biggest perpetuator of this anti-Black perspective, and what you see as kind of the, I know it's a big question, but the biggest perpetuator of the anti-Black.
Well, of the anti-Black narrative, that's a great question. I guess I think about the history of our country, and that narrative was introduced for economic reasons, largely. It is being introduced now today for economic reasons, for reasons to divide, so that wealthy people who are the minority of us can control most of us. So it's always for reasons to divide. Economics has a lot to do with it, which is why we're very intentional about disrupting the racial wealth gap through entrepreneurship and community wealth building. But the reason for it is to divide and control.
Any more questions from our judges? All right, round of applause for Melinda.